Hi, Paul. Would you like to introduce yourself to the nice people?
Yeah, sure. My name's Paul desilva. A lot of people in the old school community know me as 8-bit MTG because I used to make little 8-bit versions of Magic cards, which I haven't done in a long time, but the name is still present. So that's me.
I did not know that's where your nickname came from. I don't think I've ever
Yeah,
seen any
yeah,
of them. I'll
yeah.
have to
It's
look into that.
if you want to, I mean, I'll pull them up. I basically started when I got into old school like 4 years ago. I kind of started with Instagram because there was a lot of cool deck photos and stuff being shared there. And I was like, oh, what do I want to like post on there? And at the time, like when I was a kid, I did a lot of like pixel art in like MS Paint,
Yeah.
and I always loved doing that stuff. And so I started. This is like the beginning of my Instagram here. I started doing these little. Maybe you can see
Oh
these
yeah.
little pixel versions of cards.
That's fantastic.
And so I started doing all these like. Basically, I started with the cards that I would want to play, which are cards I'm basically still mostly playing, like birds and stuff like that. And then I did some little animated ones like that, simple
That's
stuff.
really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So that's where the name came from. I haven't done one in a couple of years because I haven't had time. That was at a time when I had some free time and could like think around and make pixel art, but no longer.
Yeah. You want to tell us where you're from? I know that
Right.
you're from. I know that you're in New York right now, but
Yes, I live in New York. I've lived here for 4 years, New York City, in Brooklyn. I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, um, and I bounced around a bit and then moved here about 4 years ago. So I'm in New York. My play group here is awesome, the Sisters of the Flame. We've got probably 40 to 50 people. Um, and we used to have weekly meetups before quarantine, which would pull like 8 to 10 kind of thing. So our local group's great. I love the New York scene here for old school. Yeah.
cool. So I'm gonna ask one more question before we start shuffling, because some people are gonna have clicked on this and they're gonna be like, "I thought there was a game," and I
Yeah.
promise there is a game. But I want to ask one more question
Mhm.
before we start. How did you start playing Magic?
Like back in the day.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, I went to, this was in grade probably two. Um, so I guess I was like seven. And I would have been, when I was 7 or 8, that was like 1994 or 1995. Um, I remember being in elementary school and there was a little after school care thing. And some of the older kids, old meaning like they were in grade 6 or something like that, two guys had brought their cards to the table and were playing, and all the littler kids that were like in grade 2 or 3 were like sitting like this at the edge of the table, like looking like, oh, whoa. And it was literally these two sixth graders with like 10 little kids surrounding and looking and like maybe trying to like touch a card being batted away and like seeing dragons and seeing like all of these things that were at the time like my favorite things in the world were dragons and like orcs and shit. Um, and yeah, I was pretty hooked on it then, and I begged my mom to buy me a booster pack. I got a booster pack of Revised and opened it, and I remember my first card was a Howl from Beyond, and I opened the
Right.
pack. That was the first card, and I was like, "Wow, I'm gonna remember this forever," and I somehow did. And then um, the rest was history. I think a lot of my early collection was Fallen Empires and like Homelands and stuff like that, because it must have been like 95 or something, but you could still get revised
Yeah,
boosters. And
and you could get Fallen Empires packs for 50 cents.
exactly. So I would like ask
That
my
was how
mom,
I got cards for sure.
yeah, yeah, maybe like once a month I would get to buy a booster pack. And then I slowly got enough to build a deck. And when I was that young, I don't think I even understood how to play. So I probably had cards for like 6 months and didn't understand the mechanisms of the game. I
Yeah,
just wanted the
yeah.
art, and like I would put them all down on my floor and look at them and like put the green cards together and put the other cards together and like try to figure it out, but not be able to figure it out. Um, and then when I finally got a rule book, I think I got a starter or revised. I read the whole rule book through and through, and I was like the guy in my little kid group where I was like, I know what that does. like I know what happens in this, and I like go in the rule book and like, yeah, you have to like take the enchantment off because the creature died or whatever like that. So
Nice.
that's
We
it.
didn't
Yeah.
really have one of those.
An instruction manual?
Well, we had the rule books, but we didn't really
Oh,
have one person who actually knew what they were
yeah,
doing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I wouldn't say that I knew. I just was the guy who had the rule book. So like someone would ask me, and then I'd be like, yeah, this. I think because at some point I had an or I got a revised starter, whereas everybody else got like boosters and somehow found the lands
Yeah,
otherwise.
yeah.
So yeah, I had that. I remember I carried the rule book around with me.
Cool. So, um, I know in general what you play
Yeah.
because we've faced each other in tournaments and such. But
Mhm.
you said you weren't sure what would be a good matchup. So I sort of rate my decks on 1 to 5, where 1 is the least serious and 5 is the most serious, and it has very little to do with how good they actually are.
Okay.
But I just wanted to know, like, where would you put your decks on a scale, your deck on a scale of 1 to 5, so that I can pick one that I think will be a good matchup.
Yeah, I would. You said 5 is most serious, or 1 is most
Yeah,
serious?
yeah.
Oh, 5 is okay. I guess I'm maybe somewhere around a 4. I think
Okay.
this
All right.
deck I would consider it to be like tier 1, competing with all the other tier 1 decks, but it definitely has put up good results and it can compete. So
Okay.
um,
I've got a number 4 deck on my
perfect.
rating scale right here. So,
Okay.
all right. So let me switch my camera
Yeah,
and let's shuffle up.
I'm just doing the old tilt. Hopefully this works.
So this is stupid blue. Since I know what you're playing in general, I think it's only fair if you know what I'm playing in general.
Okay.
And I don't need all my dice. The other deck that was sitting here was the Thallid deck. So
Gotcha. Oh yeah, we've had some good salad games. I
yeah,
remember.
we have had a few good Thallid games. And
Yeah.
and I think the last time I faced you in a tournament, I was playing the gold bordered Ernie Geddon deck,
Right.
and that was a close matchup.
Yeah, I mean that was probably before I even ran Armageddon's myself. I think for a long time I was like not wanting to run Armageddon because I didn't want to turn into an Armageddon deck, but I think eventually I just caved. um, but yeah, that was a while ago. That was probably what, like a year ago, year and a half ago, maybe.
Oh, that was the Havenwood battle, I think.
Oh, the Havenwood one. Oh, okay. So that was like not that long
Or
ago.
yeah, well, like one of the, it might have been the Pestilence, but one of the
Gotcha.
one of
I was
big
thinking the
first
last time.
cards online.
I was thinking the last time we played in person down at
Oh yeah,
Dice City.
it's been a while.
Yeah.
So let me grab a question to ask while we're drawing our opening hands.
Yeah.
So you sort of already answered my next question, which was who you learned the game from, and you did also sort of answer that who you played with when you were young. But I wanted to ask if there was one or two specific people that you played with when you were young that have really stuck with
Definitely.
you.
I well, I think my friends back then um, were definitely as nerdy as I was. Even by like grade 2, I was already eking out that side of the classroom, the nerd side.
Mm-hmm.
So my friends that I already had, once Magic was on the scene, we all picked it up pretty quick. So the people I was playing with were luckily already like friends of mine. Um, but I had one really close friend who he was a year younger, so he wasn't in my grade. We didn't share any classes together, but we lived on the same block, and somehow like our parents were friends, and so we became friends. But we would never hang out in school. But we would hang out like all weekend. I'd go over to his house, and he was really into Magic too. And we would just sit and play essentially the same. Yeah, we'd sit play the same. We only had one deck each.
Right,
We would
right.
play against each other every weekend, like 50 games against each other, with the same decks, with literally mostly the same outcomes. Like either whatever it was like either I was winning or he was winning. Like I don't think it was very 50-50. One of us was doing better, but like we would just keep doing it. I didn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was definitely the one that I played the most with as a kid.
Even or odd?
I'll take odd.
Okay. It's even.
You got it.
All right. I'll be on the play. Um,
Cool.
yeah, one of my I'll keep this. It's a pretty good hand.
Me too.
One of my favorite people to play with actually passed away a couple years ago,
Oh, sorry.
and but I hadn't really seen him since eighth grade, or like summer after eighth grade, which was
Yeah.
a little bit after I started playing.
Yeah.
I will open with a factory and a soul ring, and
Okay.
pass to you. But I mean, it was just really surprising. I mean, like, we're not that old, and I don't want to
Right.
bring
Yeah.
I don't want to bring everyone down by mentioning that. It's just, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's a sobering thing. Go ahead. Um, and yeah, I don't know when you magic is tends to be like a bit of an escape from reality, and I try to keep the two separate. But it's weird when things like that happen and reality works its way into your magic memories because your associations with this person obviously are also like the first person you played magic with. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's strange, but I think it's nice too. I mean, there's a lot of places where reality is leaking into old school right now in terms of like we're doing this charity auction that's happening right now, and that's all going to you know the current events. So
Yeah. That's you guys organized that?
oh no, sorry, not us. I mean,
Yeah.
as a community, we're
Oh,
doing
yeah, yeah, okay. Someone does
yeah,
have
the
one
Seattle,
going on right now, I think, though.
Seattle guys. Yeah,
Yeah.
doing the big one. Yeah,
I'll play Sinbad,
yeah,
and with the extra mana from the Soul Ring, I will activate
yeah.
the factory and attack for 2,
18.
and pass the turn.
I have to add one little story I remember from playing with that guy that I used to go to his house on weekends was that he on one weekend I went over and let's go with a Pearl and a Savannah. On one weekend, I went over there and we wanted to spend the night. I would always spend the night at his place, and we wanted to spend the night out in the backyard with a tent. So we pitched a tent, and we went out there with our magic cards, played all night, and we eventually fell asleep in the tent. And unfortunately, tents have those like little pockets on the sides.
Yeah.
Sarah and I will pass the turn. Tends to have those little sort of mesh pockets on the sides sometimes. I had my deck in like a revised deck box, and he had his deck in like a rubber band. We both put our decks in those pockets on the sides, respectively. Oh yeah.
Your turn.
And in the morning, when we woke up, his deck was soaked and my deck survived. Like the box got wet, but the cards, maybe like one card on the top got a little wet. I got a 17 off my did. And he was so bummed, and I was so bummed for him, but I was also like, my deck survived and his didn't. And I was just like, oh, like I feel bad, but like, I'm also very glad about the survive. We didn't know what to do. And so I think he just laid them all out on the table and tried to dry them out. And I don't know if it worked. I can't remember that part, but it's ingrained in my memory how awful that felt.
So, just wondering, are you still friends with him? Like, do you still?
Not as much as I should. Like we're Facebook friends, but I would say we probably haven't talked in about a decade.
But you've stayed. Yeah, I mean, you've at least like.
I would call him a friend. Yeah, we never had any sort of falling out or anything.
You gonna disenchant?
Disenchant the soul ring. Yeah. And, geez, I got an impasse here. I'll pass it then.
All right, I will activate Sinbad.
Sure.
I'll draw an island. Sweet.
Yeah.
Feels great every time it happens.
Yeah, and I think like throughout my Magic history, like I moved schools a lot when I was a kid, and so at every different school I would make some new friends, and usually there's this aspect to Magic where like as a kid, because I moved around, I would go into school on day one. I got a 16. Oh, you're at 19, right?
19.
So, yeah, I would go into school on the first day of a new school, and I would have my magic cards, and it was really easy to just go into the lunchroom and quickly spot the magic players in the corner, like a group of nerds huddled around some lunch table. Second dude. And, ooh, nice. And I would just go up to them and be like, hey, can I play? And then, of course, they'd say yes. Go ahead. And I'd have, like, instantly made all the friends I needed for that school year kind of thing. And the funny thing is, and I didn't realize this until more recently, is that I did the same thing. Like, I moved to New York 4 years ago, and I knew a couple people here, but not that many. And I was just getting into old school, so I like put out a bunch of feelers in Facebook groups and was like, "Hey, I just moved here and I want to play Magic. Like, does somebody want to play?" And like, we built this community around us, like the few people that reached out, and then now we've got 40 people. So it's like I did the same thing. I'm like a 33-year-old, and I basically just walked into the lunchroom and asked if anybody wanted to play with me.
That's amazing. That was actually my next question, was how you got into old school.
Yeah.
So it was a nice segue there.
Yeah.
I will play a. I'm at 18 now from my own dib, and
Right, sorry.
I'll play the factory. Your turn.
Yeah. Yeah. So there is this nice. Again, what I always say I love about Magic, about old school specifically, is that there's a really good community, and that's always what I've looked for, I guess, in Magic, is a sense of community. So, yeah, it's really great. I am gonna just give her a rip here and go for the get-in.
I mean, on the one hand, I've got Sinbad, but I think I better counter that. Oops. With this counter spell.
You got it. I'll pass.
I will activate Sinbad.
Yeah.
I'll draw an island. Sweet. This is what happens when you don't have power. You have to play enough lands that Sinbad is actually good.
Yeah, I love it.
I go to 17. So my next question was, what is it's hard to talk about favorites in general, but what is your favorite win?
Favorite win?
Yeah. Your favorite time that you've won a game of Magic.
Man.
I'll pass the turn. Since we're at a bit of an impasse, I think it's a good time to ask a question that takes a little while to think.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many good ones in like my recent old school years. I can't say I remember a ton from being like young.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I take one already? I think I need to. 14.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tap out here for a Sarah and see if that sticks.
Okay.
And I'll pass it back to you. Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, with recent old school, so I guess like I've been recently putting up some pretty good results at big tournaments. So like Eternal Weekend, I made it all the way to the finals, and LobsterCon, I made it all the way to the finals. And so all those wins, like I'm not somebody who's used to winning much in Magic. I would usually come in around the middle of the pack. So like, I guess like the wins, you know, that were in the semifinals were like the really impactful ones where I'm like, somehow I made it to the semifinals and then somehow I win that. And like, those are memorable for sure, even though I went on to lose in the finals. Recall 2. Yeah.
Recall for 2. I will get
Sure.
back Soul Ring and my book.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I remember specific wins too bad, but
and I'll pass.
yeah, I do remember actually. I think this last Eternal Weekend. I'll take one. You took one? Yeah.
Yeah.
This last Eternal Weekend.
Actually, I should be at 16.
Yeah, 16. This last Eternal Weekend, I ended up like getting paired against Scheffenecker a couple times. Michael Scheffenecker.
Yeah.
He's a really amazing player, and I've known him for a while now.
He's a beast.
He's a beast. And we played, I think in the main event at Eternal Weekend, I think he might have been my semifinal match. I'm going to swing with Sarah.
I'll go to tough.
And I'm going to play a second Sarah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And I will pass. So yeah, I think Scheppenecker actually might have been my semifinals game that took me to the finals. So that win was memorable. But the funny thing was that I think the next day we went into the main hall and played one of those side events where they had like 3 rounds, and the winner could win like the big chaos orb. They had the chaos orb that was like 4 foot tall.
Yeah.
And I played against him, and I think that he was like 2-1, so he was in the running for it, and I was 1-2, but we got paired up, and I should have been a gentleman and like conceded to him, but I played him, and I think I beat him, and he was so angry. Like, it's just funny, and it sticks out to me for that reason. You're passing, right?
Oh, no. Yeah, I have to pass.
Tone on the board.
Don't have a lot of cards that can save me right now. It's a lot of.
Gotcha.
That's a lot of Sarahs.
Play Savannah, and I think I swing with 2 Sarahs.
All right, I will block 1, take 4, and go to 7.
Sorry, and I should have gone to 12 ahead of my turn. And seems rude, but I'm gonna have to disenchant that book.
All right, well, I'll draw 1 card.
Yep. Go ahead.
I don't think activating Sinbad does anything for me. You got it. All right.
Did you want to play a full match with sideboarding and that kind of thing?
If you want to sideboard, we can sideboard. It's up to you.
Whatever you think. Whatever you think is best. I think it might take unnecessary time, so I'm happy to just play 3 main board games if that works for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would really sideboard much against you anyway. So
yeah, I don't think I would either.
So let me ask the opposite of the previous question.
Yeah.
I know that I often have like a particularly bad defeat after a tournament that really sticks with me. Do you have a favorite loss?
I mean, I because these last couple of big tournaments, I got so close to taking it down and losing in the finals. I remember those matches. I'm not usually like a person who remembers matches very well. Like, I can't remember a game I played a week ago online or something like that. Just because there's just, I don't know what it is. I'm not good at remembering all the plays that happen. But those games, those ones that were like the finals matches that I lost, I remember so much about the plays and what was on the board and all that stuff, because it really sticks with you. And basically, it was 3 big tournaments that I got to the finals of. So it was Eternal Weekend, LobsterCon 2, and the Urza's Chalice event. I got to the finals on all 3. And it was against Ben Wagman, Will McGran, and Svante Landgraf, who are all amazing players and like known winners in the community.
Yeah.
And I think for Ben, it was like maybe his first big win. So that was actually pretty cool that like it came down to the 2 of us and neither of us had really taken down like a tournament before. And so the fact that he won, that's awesome. Whereas like for Will, I know that Will like wins a lot of events just by virtue.
Yeah, he had a pretty good year last year.
Yeah, exactly. So for him, it was just like one more, trophy on the wall. But for me, it would have been like my first kind of tournament that I took down. But yeah, I remember the specific 3 the most. If I can answer with 3. The funny thing is, I played essentially the same deck that I'm playing right now in all 3 of those. And I guess you're on the play here. Yeah. I played essentially the same deck, but those three matches were like, I am gonna take 1 and play Lion. Go ahead. They were so different, all three of them, because I played. Oh, that's the perfect card. Oh god.
Go ahead.
Oh man. Yeah. I'm surprised that wasn't a sideboard because that's a perfect card.
I play the main deck.
Whatever. I'll swing.
All right. Ow. And then I go to 18. Or
And
16.
then-
16.
Oh, you'd have to take the damage first?
Yeah, yeah, it's after combat damage.
Gotcha. Then I'm going to time walk.
Oh, boo.
Go to 18. Well, at least get one more attack in there.
14.
And I'll pass the turn.
Uh,
So yeah, those three losses were a little brutal. Ben, I played the same deck. Ben played like Arabian aggro. Will played like his Dibitog thing, and he honestly just beat me with gloom. That's what it came down to. Is that I sideboarded in so many white cards because a lot of my sideboard was white, like Divine Offerings and
yeah.
Chance, and he just brought in like 3 glooms or something, and it just like I was destroyed. It was really bad. God, who's gonna kill this lion? I think I just pass it back to you. And then the last one was Fanta. He was on shops, and we had a really fun match because I played out like 3 energy fluxes, so he couldn't really do anything, and he somehow managed. Ooh, that's brutal. I'm actually gonna
disenchant
it. Yeah.
Okay.
He managed to fight me through energy fluxes with the shops deck by essentially just Mishra's Factories and copying Mishra's Factories and
yeah, I've had that experience too, or they'll play 1 or 2 creatures out and you just won't be able to do anything about it.
Right. Yeah. I got a 17 for an earning.
Okay.
I will pass turn.
My desert is tapped.
Oh, I should attack. Ha! I didn't realize.
I'm at 12.
Thank you.
2, 4 for control magic.
Yeah, that's good.
I would like the Urnom. Thank you.
Yeah.
Your turn. Can you Armageddon now? That would be great.
Right? I'll play a trap. Yikes. This is not as good as it was for me last turn. Go ahead.
So one of my questions was, do you I see you at a lot of tournaments, but that's kind of the nature of us, living pretty far apart. Do you prefer kitchen table versus tournament magic, or are you?
Yeah, I mean, I used to be only kitchen table. I would say like my entire childhood, I only played Magic as something you play at home. I didn't even step into a store for any sort of event until I was like 21, I think, after college, when I kind of got into it again. You're swinging with Bernie. Yes, I take 4.
And I'll pass.
It's not so bad. I guess my Dandelion has forest walk too, right?
I have no forests.
Oh, right. Give me a second to think here. Yeah, I'm gonna. Guess it doesn't matter if there's forest walk or not. I'm gonna just swing with both these guys.
Okay. One sec. I'll strip the factory. And I'll go to 10 from the line?
Yep. I'm gonna ping it.
Yeah, and I'll ping it after.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, for me, like as a kid, it was all kitchen table, and that's what I really think of as Magic. Go to 9,
Your turn.
and woof. I'm gonna go to 8 playing Ernie.
I'm gonna power sync that
Damn it.
for 1.
Go ahead. But now it's growing on me, I think, because for tournaments, I think because you have to travel and you get to see friends you haven't seen in a long time, uh, it's like becoming a new thing I get nostalgic for. It's like this travel and seeing people I haven't seen in like a year.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, like our local group we played, and we will continue once we can. Again, you're swinging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go to 4. Um, yeah, we played every Tuesday night, so we got to play old school every week, which is pretty rare. And oh god, this is bad. I think you just have this one. I'm gonna play bird
Okay.
and pass. And yeah, when we do those meetups, they're all kitchen table. So I still would say I play way more kitchen table. That's an Alipile?
Aleopile, and I'll pile the
Yeah,
bird.
that's game.
Stylish
So I would say I
idea.
still play more kitchen table than I play tournament structured things. Even though I play like the Neos monthly stuff and that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
uh, or whatever web stuff is now. You know, COVID times is different than normal times. But during normal times, I'm playing more actual sort of kitchen table at our meetups than I
Okay.
am playing tournaments. Yeah.
So, I wanted to ask, what's the farthest you've ever traveled for one of the old school tournaments?
Ooh. Um, I well, being from New York, um, so on the East Coast, I would say like I did get to go to NewCon last year, 2019, which is in Sweden, in Gothenburg, and that seems far, but I think the times that I've traveled to San Francisco for games may have technically been farther.
Yeah,
Um,
I can see
I'm
that.
not sure how the math works out, but
Yeah, one of
uh,
those great circle things where Sweden might actually be closer by
somehow
plane
closer
ride.
to New York
Yeah.
than San Francisco is. But obviously, going to a foreign land where the signs are in a different language and the culture and the food is different and people drive on different sides of the road and like all the things that come with that make Sweden by far the most far I've traveled in terms of culturally uh, for for a tournament.
So where
But
where is that in Sweden?
in Gothenburg,
Gothenburg. Okay.
yeah, which is on the east side, or sorry, on the west side. So I think I went with my girlfriend. We actually spent a while in why can I not in Stockholm? Sorry,
Oh, okay.
Stockholm, and we spent a while there, and then we took the train over to Gothenburg. Uh, so it's very nice.
So I know I could ask about the Magic games that you played there, but I actually wanted to ask about what else did you guys do while you were there? Did you
Yeah, so for that trip, my girlfriend and I decided to make it like a big long trip. We ended up going uh, to London and to Paris within that same trip. So I think it was 2 weeks total, um, and we did like 3 or 4 days in each place. And we went to also Copenhagen as well. Um, yeah, I'll keep this. Geotundra and a pearl for a line. Go ahead. But really, I mean, just eating a lot of good food, staying in nice hotels. What? Again?
I played 4 of them. Go
So good.
ahead.
It really is so good. You're passing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the last time I played against your deck, you might not have had the lions.
Yeah, I didn't always do lines. Sure.
And so this ended up being a little bit different than what I expected it to be.
Yeah,
Oh man.
did.
Oh.
And I will pass.
do a Sinbad. Your turn.
I go to 19. Let's come in swinging.
All right, I will block the line.
Sure.
Go to 17.
And
No.
go ahead.
Stop that. Dibby-dibby-doo.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Two. Savannah. I guess I will get in 3 of them.
I'll block. Go to 14.
And I will second main play an Ernie.
Oh, this is so bad.
Go ahead.
13.
This is how the deck is meant to run. It's big fatties at you every turn. Drop a fatty.
Yeah. Let me take your Urnum.
Damn it. You always take it when it's untapped, too.
Go ahead.
I go to 15. Play a Mana Bird. Swing.
I'll block 1. Go to 10.
And I'm going to do this now, because I know you're going to counter it, otherwise it'll disenchant the control. I'll pass.
I am at 9. Play a Concorn.
Yes.
Pass.
Your Serendip has Forest Walk. I go to 13. Draw. And I'm swinging with the team.
Alright, I will Psyblast one of the Freets. Puts me to 7. I'll block Urnum, and then I'll take 3 and go to 4.
And I will pass the turn.
Soul Ring, Mahamodi.
Nice.
I don't think it's enough. Go ahead.
Modi has Forest Walk.
I mean, that's a thing if you were at 5.
Right. You're 12. Well, I guess I could throw these into Modi.
Yeah, well, I have to block the Urnum, and I go to 1.
Yeah. And I will second main play another Urn.
Stop that.
Go ahead. Oh my god.
Go ahead.
Force Walk again.
Whee!
I go to 11, draw. I think I'm just going to go wide here. Play one more Urnum.
Okay.
Play a Lion.
Okay.
And pass the turn.
All right. Sack this. Oh. Man. You just barely get there. Oh, if only I still had my Sinbad.
Yeah.
You got it.
Damn. Oh, man. If you had twiddled that thing, I would have been pissed.
That was a good game.
I literally threw everything I had down on the board that last turn. That was good. That was a really good match. And a good game 3, too.
Yeah. Let me switch the camera back. I got one more question after I switch. So, actually, I've got two more. So one is, um, coffee, tea, booze, or water when you're playing.
Oh, actually, I have coffee. I have coffee over here that I was neglecting this whole time.
Yeah, I mean, like,
um,
some people in the community definitely are like, they won't play unless they have a beer in front of them.
I thought you were going to say some people in the community are alcoholics, and I was going to be like, yeah,
I
you're right.
don't, I don't want to, I don't want to be judgy.
I think they're self-proclaimed alcoholics. Um, yeah, I'll drink coffee. But I mean, if I'm at a tournament, I'm definitely drinking beer or something. Um, and I do notice, like, if I go to a tournament and it's like 6 rounds or something like that, like, I'll probably have a coffee in the morning before the tournament starts. But I start drinking beer like round 2, and by round 4, I'm like getting a little, there. You hit the curve where you're feeling good and you're like taking risks and it's paying off, and then you have one more beer and it all kind of
Yeah.
crumbles, falls apart. So, um, yeah, yeah, that's how I roll.
So, so like, I mean, in kind of in relation to that, when you guys were meeting for your in person weekly meetups, were you
Mhm.
where were you guys playing?
So we were meeting. There's a sort of in downtown in like the financial district, across the street from the new World Trade Center is this mall-esque sort of thing. It's basically like a high-end mall. So it's got like Louis Vuitton and like all of these high-end brands, like Givenchy and like all of these things. So I've never seen anybody shop in those stores, um, but the stores are there. But above that, they've got like a food court that's kind of like an upscale food court. It's pretty nice. But there's some deals on beers. You can drink in there. It's like a mall food court where you can drink. Um, and so we meet there mostly because uh, New York City is huge, but there's like quite a few of us that live in Brooklyn, quite a few of us that live in Manhattan, like north of like in Midtown or wherever else, and then quite a few of us live in New Jersey. I'd say it's almost split like a third, a third, a third. And so for all the subway lines, like with the path from New Jersey and subways from Brooklyn and all the subways coming down, like the World Trade Center is where all those trains meet. And
Okay.
so because we usually meet after work, it's like that was the easiest place where like you can wherever you are in the city, you can get off work, hop on a train, and like be at the meetup within 20 minutes or half an hour kind of thing.
Nice.
Um, it would be great to find a place that is a bar, but a lot of the bars, that area doesn't have a lot of bars that would really be accommodating for that. So if we had a bar in some other area, it would be difficult for one of those 3 groups to get to. Because even coming from New Jersey, it's already kind of hard. If you take the path, then you have to like switch to a train and then like walk somewhere. Like it takes time.
Yeah.
So yeah, try to make it as easy and as accessible as you can.
Yeah, I we used to meet in a bar. The person who helped me found the Baltimore group, who, I mean, somewhat ironically, hasn't been able to make any meetups since
Okay.
the first few.
Yeah.
But he was a part owner of a bar that we used to hang out in, and then, um, but like the last few times we met was just in my house, you know. It was literally kitchen table magic,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know. So my last question was, a lot of us are, let's say, very opinionated about
Right.
about the format. Um, is there anything about the old school format or anything associated with old school Magic that you would change if you could?
Hmm. Um, that's a great question. Uh, I think that it's good that people are opinionated. Uh, how you share your opinions matters. Uh, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but I think a lot more people are jerks about their opinions than than they need to be, and there's not a lot of or you quickly find the people that you think are having like civil discourse on opinions in old school. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to like to honestly, I think that if there's like disagreements with like how old school should be as a format, I think that's kind of good. And a lot of people when these new formats started springing up, so like now we have Atlantic, which was formed last year or whatever, um, and now there's things like the Alpha 40 League and all this stuff. Every single one goes through the same pattern. Because I mean, like 4 years ago when I started old school, there was Swedish and there was EC. That was it. There
Right,
wasn't
right.
anything else. And maybe some people, kitchen table people, were like doing weird things, but in terms of what was known and what was being played, it was those two. And every single new thing that's come out has followed this cycle of like somebody says like, "Oh, I made this new format that I think will be kind of fun," and then like a drove of people get really angry about it and think that it's like changing the face of old school, and then another drove of people try it and they're like, "Oh, this is really fun actually," and then it becomes this war between the people who have tried it and are think it's cool, or even tried it and think it's like not for them. It's a war between those guys and the people who really hate it but have never even done it. And so like I know when like Atlantic was when Dave Frithbard was making Atlantic, there's a ton of just like people tweeting or like arguments in the Discord, all the stuff that like one strip mine is objectively worse. Um, but a lot of those people, when you ask them point blank, have you played like in a one strip mine format? They were like, well, no, but how can you do that? Like it just seems like stupid kind of thing. And I think until you try it, you don't realize that it's not that bad. And like the guys in Sweden have been playing with one strip mine for 10 years.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
have a lot of data on like it being okay. And I don't know. I would
Yeah,
just
I
say
mean,
like,
I should mention like this deck contains Fallen Empires, but it's still only got one strip mine, and it wasn't intentionally
yeah,
Atlantic. It was just I had this deck built before Dave even made the Atlantic format
okay, cool. Yeah,
because a lot of my decks are made to play against each other, and I'm like,
right.
well, my decks don't have power. Strip mine is really brutal when you don't have
Yeah,
power, and
yeah, exactly.
so
It's not fun to play against a little bit.
yeah,
And I
but
understand more in the context of like a tournament where you're trying to balance. Obviously, you're trying to balance like the unfortunate side effect of the finance side of MTG, where like some people can't afford power, so like strip mine becomes a um, strip mine is a way to like bridge that gap kind of thing. So that's the argument is that like um, strip mine can help aggressive decks which are unpowered to like beat people who are playing like slower powered decks kind of thing because you can like attack their mana base and get through whatever kind of thing. So there is kind of like a push pull there that's unfortunately not just due to the utility of the cards. Um, but yeah, I guess if I was going to change anything, I would say it'd be great if people tried new things before they bashed them. I guess because
yeah, and I am definitely guilty of that occasionally.
I mean, everybody is
I
right.
um I was pretty vocal about looking at the Beasts of the Bay's 1.5 band list, even in its original form, which was smaller, and saying, "Huh," and basically looked at it and said, "Oh, it's white weenie up format." But I mean,
Right.
I have to be honest. Like my biggest complaint about it was something that even having played the format is not something I can get past, which was like my multicolored decks use Birds of Paradise and City of Brass because that's what I can
Mhm.
afford. But they banned those and left in the dual lands. So
That's right. They
and
banned birds. I think that's why I never wanted to play. I looked at it and saw birds were banned. And I was like, this is not the format for me. So I never played
yeah,
it.
and that's the thing. Also when I started playing old school, there was only EC and Swedish, and obviously like Swedish was just that was never gonna happen for me,
Right. Yeah.
and um, but there wasn't an Atlantic format or
Yeah.
anything like that, so like there was less of an opportunity for me to say I want to go do something else, but also less of an opportunity for people to to mouth off about something that they hadn't tried.
That's true. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
I guess if old school was somehow unified, like if Swedish existed and then nothing else was ever made after that, and that's all we knew. Um, well, I was going to say people wouldn't argue as much, but I think people would still find new things to be pissed off about.
yeah, I mean,
So yeah, maybe, yeah, I should have thought that one through first. I don't know. I guess maybe always there will be people who are angry at something, and I think the difference now is that like old school was quite small a few years ago, where like you could almost know everybody in the community, and now it must be. I was just doing the math the other day, like with some estimations, and I was like, it must be something like 5,000 players worldwide because I was looking at all the groups um, that are out there, like all the old school groups, and each one is somewhere between like 5 to 10 players. And if you multiply all those out, you get a certain number. And then there's all these ones that are unaffiliated. And I was like, oh, there must be so many, like X amount of people. And I think when there was less people, you a little bit had to care about what each person thought.
mm-hmm.
And I think now it's so big that if somebody's angry about some aspect of some new niche format, nobody has to care because there's 100 players who don't mind and who like it. So yeah, that's kind of nice. I think as it grows, it matters less if people are angry or not because you just find players who aren't, and then you have a good time. Yeah.
Okay, I wanna thank you, Paul, for doing this
Yeah.
interview and essentially being my guinea pig since this is the
Mm-hmm.
first video I got to record. I'm glad it went well, and I'm glad we had a good match that went to 3 games.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And so.
And I'm glad I won.
And I don't mind that I lost. I mean, that's
right.
There's
Maybe
that's
you're gonna
kind of
let all
losses.
your maybe you let all your guests win. Let them win.
I was trying to win, I promise.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was a lot of fun, and I hope you stay safe. I hope
Yeah.
things go well for you in the future,
Yeah.
given what's going on in the world. And
Yeah, you as well. Hopefully we can see each other at another Cooney event down south.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again, Paul. Have a good night.
Cool. Peace.